Hello everyone, and thanks for tuning in to the Daniel Sauls Show here on YouTube on this beautiful day, as I will dive deep into boxing, specifically Gervonta Tank Davis and his last fight against Lamont Roach, and how that fight played out and what I think about the results. But before this video begins, make sure you go like, turn on post notifications on as always, and comment. Let me know what you think about this video, and if you want to see more greatness and more amazing takes from me, Daniel Sauls, make sure you go subscribe to my channel, because I'll be back with more videos and more highlights for y'all. Let's get into the video. I just witnessed something that I never thought I would witness. Gervonta Tank Davis just lost the fight. Now, I know that the official ruling is a draw. I don't give a damn. That was a loss. Okay, Gervonta Tank Davis lost 7-5, and that should have been a knockdown. In the 9th round, Gervonta Tank Davis willingly took a knee and then ran to his corner so that they can rub him with a towel, because he claimed that the grease in his hair after 2 days of getting his hair done got in his eyes and it was burning him. Now look, that's a knockdown. He claimed after the fight he didn't know that you could get disqualified for that if you don't, get the knockdown, all that stuff. And he didn't know that it would have been a knockdown. Well, the thing is this. It should have been a knockdown. They cheated him of it. However, Lamont Roach, everyone doubted you, including me. I didn't talk about it on the show, but I doubted you. I didn't know who you were. And then when I watched this fight, because at first I was like, okay, I'm going off of what Tank said, because Tank is a pound-for-pound fighter in the world, probably number 3. But he said before the fight that Lamont Roach had more skills than Frank Martin. He said he has more skills than Frank Martin. So I took that as I watched Frank Martin fight Tank Davis and beat him up for about 5 rounds. And then Tank Davis picked up the pace and then ended up knocking him out cold. But I saw the work that Frank was doing. The only thing he was lacking was power. So I watched the fight through that lens, okay? And I'm watching the fight, and I'm seeing it happen live. Gervonta Tank Davis and Lamont Roach were doing absolutely nothing. To start the first 4 rounds, they were sitting there and just dancing. They were barely throwing any punches. Lamont Roach was barely throwing any punches, but, so happened to be outlanding him. I mean, he was outlanding Tank Davis. And I was just like, neither one of you were throwing punches. How can you even say who won a round at that point? I mean, you would literally have to go punch for punch. And I just don't think that that's fun. I don't think that that's entertaining. Well, then the later rounds or the middle rounds come in, and they start throwing some shots. Did you know that Lamont Roach is not more skilled than Frank Martin? You know what he is, though? I'll tell you what he is. He's smarter, and he's more powerful. Tank Davis respects Lamont Roach's power, and you saw it after one of the later rounds. After Tank Davis got wobbled, he touched Lamont on the stomach right before they went to their corners. As the bell rung, the round was over. He touched Lamont on the stomach to give him like a little, all right, that hurt, or like, all right, I respect that. He got him. He got him. Lamont hit him with a good shot, and we all saw it happen. Tank Davis was wobbled. Tank Davis wasn't himself. And Lamont Roach had great timing, better timing than Gervonta, and he was powerful. I'm not going to say he was as powerful as Tank, but out of all Tank's opponents, that was by far the guy with the best timing and power. I think Frank Martin is more skilled than Lamont Roach. I think that he is a better textbook boxer than Lamont Roach. Lamont Roach just fights in spurts. He fights like how Ryan Garcia fought in the Haney fight. He would sit there in the middle of the ring and do absolutely jack. He did nothing. The only times he would fight is when Tank Davis would throw any punches. He would try to counter. Well, that's what Tank Davis does. Tank Davis is a counter puncher, meaning he wasn't really going to throw any punches. Well, it's pretty safe to say that both of them were trying to counter each other. And Tank Davis is a counter puncher at heart. And Lamont Roach, normally when you put pressure on somebody, you throw punches. Frank Martin was putting pressure on Davis the entire fight, and he was throwing punches. He was outlanding, and he had a higher percentage of thrown punches than Tank Davis. Tank Davis is a very low output fighter and has high accuracy. But in the Frank fight, he was getting picked apart. And then in the very later rounds, he saw Frank Martin was tired, which he claimed was the game plan. Tire him out, let him tire himself out, and then knock him out. Well, why couldn't you do the same thing with Lamont Roach? He was just standing there. He was just a standing punching bag. And you did absolutely nothing. That's what pissed me off, because I'm sitting here watching a Tank fight and saying, why are you not knocking him out? Your record was 30-0 with 28 knockouts, and you sit there and watch a guy stand in front of you, put pressure on you, and do nothing. Lamont Roach gets all the credit because he did the unthinkable. He should have won that fight 7-5. He won the fight. I don't care about a draw. That was not right. And the one person that gave Tank the fight, look, it was close because Tank stole a few of the rounds, but when he said that he won the last 3 rounds, he is on something, because he did not win the last 3 rounds at all. Frank Martin won basically all the rounds in their fight until Tank Davis was like, okay, I'm going to tire you out and knock you out. In this fight, Lamont Roach and Tank Davis were kind of like, you get around, then you get around, then you get around, because they weren't really throwing punches, so it was kind of hard to score. And then towards the middle rounds, they started throwing more haymakers, and you know who was landing more? Lamont Roach. Tank Davis had maybe 2 rounds where he was landing the most. Other than that, Lamont Roach outlanded, and they say that Tank Davis had more power punches, but we saw which one did more damage. When Lamont Roach hit Tank Davis, he nearly fell. And when Tank hit Lamont, he just stood back up and was just like, I'm right here. Like, he just stood there. He took every punch and ate them all. So I'm just seeing this from, this is a rematch. This has to be a rematch. We have to get a rematch. Now, after the fight, Tank Davis said that he wants this rematch immediately, but it's not going to be this year. So he said it's probably not going to be immediate because he's fighting somebody else. He also gave a hint saying that the guy who he's probably going to fight next was in his locker room. They said Shakur Stevenson. He said no. So we don't know who he's going to fight. At least I don't know. However, we will get this Roach rematch. And Tank Davis did want to retire, and the whole plan for this video was going to be Tank Davis's top 5 future potential opponents before retirement. Well, he said that changed because he got a draw. He didn't think he was going to get a draw or lose, so this changed his retirement plans. He now has 4 more fights. Here's my problem with Tank Davis before this video is done. Tank Davis lost to Lamont Roach, a guy who barely anybody knew. Only extreme boxing savants and analysts knew who this guy was. I sure as hell didn't know who that was. But he proved to me and to tons of people that he's on everybody's radar now. We all know that he's one of the best fighters in the world. He went toe-to-toe with Tank Davis and arguably beat him. He arguably beat him. I mean, I don't see how you can knock a guy who goes into the ring with 0 expectation. Everybody thinks he's going to get knocked out, and then he basically won the fight. If the judges didn't screw him over and rob him, he wins that fight 7-5. Tank Davis doesn't have the motivation anymore. He does not have the motivation. He does not have the drive. He has no killer instinct anymore. And you could see it. I also don't like how he got a new trainer. Calvin Ford is now the second man in the ring, and he's not the head trainer. What is that about? When I look at this fight versus the Frank Martin fight, I could see why Tank Davis might have wanted to get a new trainer. But Tank Davis, my guy, you got weakened up. You're weakened up now because you are not the same fighter. I don't think it was just off of he wasn't focused, because a lot of people said after the fight that the reason why he lost was because he wasn't focused. I think that's one of the few things that it was. I think it was a combination of many of things. I think it was that he wasn't focused. He was thinking about retirement, his next fight, all that stuff. and his personal life, which is perfectly fine. Gervonta Tank Davis clearly stated on numerous occasions that he doesn't feel like he's a great enough person and that he wants to better himself as a father, as a son, everything. He wants to become a better person. And you know what? I salute that. I respect that. I think that's very, very good. I think that's a great thing. Gervonta Tank Davis, you sound like you're going to be a great guy. I think that you're going to make it through. I think you're going to be better in the future, but here's the thing. You already said that if you retired, worked on yourself, and tried to come back, so basically take a break from the sport, you won't be the same. You won't have that mindset, that mentality, that killer in you anymore, because you already said that you're a nice guy and that you have to turn this switch on and become this killer in the ring, and that's not who you are, and it's making you something outside of the ring that you're not. So you want to fix yourself. You want to better yourself. And there's nothing wrong with that. But don't go fighting if you don't have it in you. Because when people think of Gervonta Tank freaking Davis, they think of an absolute assassin, a killer, a guy who has knockout power and heavyweight power in the lightweight division. We think of a guy who is box office. We think of a guy who is literally the face of boxing. That's what we think. At least one of the faces of boxing, including Jake Paul and Canelo Alvarez. But my point is, Gervonta, if you go out of the sport and think about coming back, Roy Jones is right. You better stay ready, because if you're not, somebody will take advantage of you and they will knock you out or beat you. And we don't want to see that, because you are a talented fighter. And before this fight, I said, God, why does Gervonta keep fighting nobodies? I mean, I didn't know who Frank Martin was. I had no idea who Lamont Roach is. Now watching both of them, I realize they're really good contenders. But Lamont Roach is better than what I thought he was. He's not better than Frank Martin to me, but he's definitely better than I thought he was. You're fighting good fighters. If this was you, if you end up retiring and coming back, you would have got knocked out. Because this dude has way more power than Frank Martin. Lamont Roach is underappreciated, and he is slept on. That power is slept on. And he said it before the fight. His power is slept on. And let me tell you this. Tank Davis, you better turn that switch on. And you said in the post-fight press conference that this motivated you. And now you want to go back and you want to do better. This lit a fire under you. You said that you want to win. You said that this is going to make you want to win. I think that this is going to change everything. I think Gervonta Tank Davis is not lying. I think he is telling the truth. This affected him. He's taking it very well. I think he will bounce back. He will beat the next fighter that comes in front of him, that stands toe-to-toe with him in the ring. And then when he fights Lamont Roach next year, I see him winning the fight. Because I don't think Lamont Roach is too hard to pick apart. I think that he's pretty slow, but I think that he's a very smart guy. His timing is right. That doesn't mean he's fast, but his timing is right. And he's got power. I don't think he has as much power as Tank, and I think when Tank is on his A game, he has better timing, and he's faster, and he's smarter. He has him in everything. I think Lamont Roach put out a great performance. This was a statement performance. This is a performance that definitely is going to shape the rest of his career. This is going to be a stepping stone for what's coming next for him. I think this fight is going to set him up for many bigger fights in the future. But with that being said, Tank Davis, if you are not ready for the next fight, you might as well just stay home and sit on your couch, because we don't want to see this happen again. As fans who love boxing and love you fighting, love to watch you fight, nobody wants to see this. They want to see that killer, because we all know you are. And if you're not a killer in the ring, when we watch that fight, just stay home. Because you can't let a guy like Lamont Roach beat you, bro. He beat you. He beat you. I'll never forget that.